Coronavirus, a global pandemic.
Worldwide, more than 14,000 cases of coronavirus.
People around the world have to be more vigilant than ever.
Hundreds of thousands of face masks are thrown away each day.
Plastic consumption is up during the ongoing pandemic.
To an enormous amount of face.
So I bet you're probably wondering how we got here. To figure that out, we have to take it back to the beginning. There have been many reports as to how COVID-19 started. However, emerging studies are discovering the strange but strong connection it has to environmental exploitation. It's no secret that humans have been destroying nature to create space for themselves, causing other species to be extinct. And this decrease in diversity makes it more likely for certain pathogens to travel from animals to humans, exposing us to unique diseases. Its connection to the environment doesn't end with its origin. In fact, the public health crisis has triggered a spike in an equally alarming environmental problem: plastic pollution. As we take a closer look at our current situation, COVID-19 is driving us to reconsider the plastic issue. So we interviewed Ate Princess, a member of the Bantay Dagat community.
Nitong nag-lockdown na, bali nagkaroon din medyo dumami yung plastic. Kasi po, yung mga plastic parang hindi maiwasan.
And the role of plastic during the pandemic has become even more devastating for the environment. The demand for single-use plastics has risen too. Research suggests that coronavirus can live for about 72 hours on plastic. PPEs, for example, are not recyclable. Thus, treating them as a recyclable would only put people into the danger of infection. Also, the Confederation of Paper Industries recommended treating these single-use PPEs as medical waste, in which these should be separated and properly disposed of to fight the spread of contamination.
COVID-19 waste is considered as infectious or hazardous waste, which is why it's very important that we comply with DOH and DENR guidelines when it comes to the temporary storage, proper segregation, and management of COVID-19 waste so that we can prevent the transmission of the SARS-CoV-2 virus through these fomites.
On the other hand, there is a shift in consumption patterns as people choose to order food online and get home delivery services as they find it an ease of convenience to avoid exposure to the coronavirus. This just means more plastic waste. So who should take the responsibility? Of course, we can't discuss the plastic problem without addressing the root cause: the commercial industry and the factories that produce these in the first place. The spread of COVID-19 has seen an inevitable rise of plastic production in the health industry. In Wuhan alone, more than 240 tons of plastic waste was produced at the height of the outbreak. The most common culprits of today are face masks and surgical gloves, which contain a plastic polymer called polypropylene. Plastic production is directly linked to global warming because it originates from fossil fuels and continues to emit greenhouse gases until the end of its cycle. These build up in our atmosphere and contribute to the greenhouse effect, meaning that while radiation from the sun is allowed to enter, it is also barred from leaving, leading to the warming of the planet. Since before the industrial age, the global surface temperature has increased by about 1 degree Celsius. However, lately, scientists warn that if we do not act now, we may even see a greater increase over the next few years. Rise in temperature is directly linked to health because it can cause the spread of other diseases, such as malaria, cholera, and dengue to more areas of the planet. How do we know it's already happening? Well, if the scorching summer heat isn't enough proof, just look at our corals.
Alam naman natin na sa buong summer na ito ay sobrang init. Problema na namin ngayon, lalo dito sa aming sanctuary. At may mga picture nga din ako at ako'y nalulungkot din na namuti. Talagang namumuti sila.
And plastic doesn't really go away. It breaks down into smaller and smaller particles that end up in our seas.
as soon as the plastic gets to landfills, and then if they slowly become microplastics, they can enter into our ecosystems. So, and then tuloy-tuloy na yun na mag-a-affect sa marine ecosystems or papasok sa tubig. It can get into our food.
With the rising demand of single-use plastics and PPEs this pandemic, presence of face masks are reported to have been seen in streets, highways, drainages, shores, and oceans.
What's happening is that more and more people are with fears around the pandemic. Understandable naman that people are concerned about their safety. Sometimes they have this misconception na safer yung disposable PPEs.
These plastics, when ingested by animals and humans at a certain rate, can cause physiological effects. Additionally, since these masks were once contaminated, this could lead to a possibility of another disease outbreak. So what can we do? As much as we want to exert effort on our individual actions, it is important to understand that major companies play a huge role in this issue. It is highly encouraged for corporations to opt for better and more eco-friendly packaging while still taking into account the needs of its consumers. While we cannot completely remove the use of sachets and packets or individual packaging, producers must take note and experiment on what other alternative packaging their industries can use. It is also vital to call out and write letters to companies whom you think are committing malpractices towards the environment. In terms of PPEs, opt for reusable wares instead of disposables, when errands just involve going to groceries.
We actually have a global shortage. So it's actually better that we reserve these PPEs to our health workers. We can safely use and effectively use these reusable cloth or fabric masks.
You may also swap or borrow things that you may need or thrift them. Additionally, advocating for issues such as this requires systemic change. Know your local officials and identify their protocols in terms of waste disposal. If possible, reach out to them personally or through email to express your concerns in the hopes of modifying and implementing stricter policies on waste management. Finally, share and educate our fellow citizens by spreading awareness through this video. It is through our own experiences and stories that we may improve on each other's practices. And ultimately, can we still go back to what was normal? No, and we shouldn't. Transitioning to a new normal does not mean returning to the way we once were, but rather modifying what was normal to us before and creating something so much better out of it. Creating a better world for our future and that of generations to come.